Hello everybody and welcome to the second round of the GTE Masters, part of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship for Season 1 of 2024. We've already been to Daytona and now it's time to move continent, go over to Interlagos. Only 2 weeks ago we were here for the finale of the GT4 trophy, but now this is regular season action as a number of drivers try and get themselves towards the global final in just a fortnight's time. It's myself, Ian O'Leary, alongside Lewis McGlade for this round of the championship, and I think it's fair to say, Lewis, the Daytona round was surprisingly quiet in terms of action. I've got to say, was a little bit disappointed with how it turned out, but I certainly was not disappointed with the action at Interlagos here in the GT4s a couple of weeks ago. So my hopes are high for good racing here during our one race tonight.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's a different style of race that we had when we went racing in the M4. Same as obviously with the M2 CS Racing Cup at the start of the year. Just a single race over the evening, 60 minutes, pit stop in the middle. I would have expected Daytona to be quite a high starting point. You know, normally when we go racing at the World Centre of Racing, it's always a little bit exciting just because of the high banks, because of the high speed they run down into there, and of course the strategy that's involved. But yeah, maybe it's a little bit calmer. NeedRacing.com, they're doing their typical thing of being in charge here.
That was the real story, yeah. NeedRacing.com dominating, as they have started to do actually in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. We'll get to them a little bit later on though, of course, because as you say, they were the race winners from the opening round of this championship. We're in Interlagos today, just over 4 kilometres round here, of course. It's such an iconic circuit in terms of championship finales, and we've got a few of those in this calendar. As we say, already been to Daytona. Imola's coming next up. I do wonder how people are viewing this in the middle of the season, because Imola is going to be one of those circuits where qualifying is so important and then the race is just going to be, well, we'll stay where we are and see if we can make up maybe 1 or 2 places throughout the hour. Here, though, is a real chance maybe to make up some places. If you're not a very good qualifier, I think your hopes have to be pinned on the rounds at Daytona and Interlagos in terms of making up places during the race.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the qualifying format remains the same as what it's been before. We'll see that in a second on the timetable about how they qualify for about half an hour before they go into the hour-long race. So it's a lot of time. And some drivers work better with a longer qualifying format than with a shorter one. I always found that half an hour for me was way too long of a qualifying session. I actually never could, like, as much as you'd find the maximum of the car, I'd almost feel like you have to find that extra little bit later on the session. Some drivers are a lot better at that than others. I could never get that extra little bit, and so you know, some drivers do qualify quite poorly in this format.
Yeah, but I always used to like it. There you go. There's a difference in different mindsets and different drivers. It is a much more simpler schedule for us. Only one race, and it's the only championship in this season of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship that has just the singular race. We're going back to where it all started a couple of years ago. In terms of what we've got coming up tonight, as I mentioned, it is Interlagos, such an iconic circuit in terms of hosting those championship finales. 15 corners around here, just over 4 kilometres, very historic as well. Just in terms of lap times as well, we're in the 126s, high 126s for reference at the moment too. So that's the sort of level as to how quickly we're going around here. A circuit I think that a lot of people are going to be familiar with, but what I've noticed, especially coming into the sort of race room like championships and so on, many of people grow up driving this circuit in a Formula 1 car or maybe one of those games, but here on RaceRoom, you can take any car around there, obviously, and so it does feel a lot different. I don't know if you've ever found this, but it did feel to me a lot different when I suddenly started taking a lot slower of cars around this circuit that you are so used to driving the fastest cars in the world around.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm taking touring cars and things around here, and it does flow differently in something like a touring car than it does in an F1 car. Of course, here in the GTEs, they have raced rounds here, IRL, obviously when the WEC came here and the like. So it is a circuit which I'm sure there's been some slight experience with some drivers. They might have taken it around here, but let's be honest, GTEs, they're a fairly popular category in the world of sim racing, and you know, when it comes to here and Interlagos, it's a pretty healthy combo that can provide some pretty solid racing. Of course, you've got the really long backstretch down towards T1 and the Centre S. That's where obviously we'll see most of the overtaking throughout the evening. Hopefully get more overtaking tonight than we did just a week ago.
Hopefully so, yeah. And there is a look at the 2 cars that we have on show. The big BMW that we'll talk about again and again, along with the Porsche that is a lot more familiar to to drivers. I think this circuit with these cars will become a little more familiar over the next couple of years. As you say, the World Endurance Championship has returned here now, and so I think it's on the calendar next year too. So it will be used a little bit more by the style of car as opposed to what it was in the last decade or so, because it did used to be on this calendar, but it went away for a little while. But there you go. I doubt it will factor too much in the minds of these drivers, to be honest. Speaking of the drivers, who was here last week? Well, most of these names, to be honest with you. Philip Drace took the overall victory, and he is now, of course, RaceRoom's highest ranked driver, if I could get my words out. Martin Miskovic was also there. He's now third in the sort of ranking stand or rating standings, if you like, along with the likes of Colin Blankenberg. But if you just scroll down a little bit further, you can see Sven Mackenberg in the BMW. Didn't see many of the big names going for the BMW last time. In fact, only 2 or 3 started the race at Daytona in a BMW. It's good to see that little bit more variety, although we are still very much outnumbered in terms of Porsches in this grid. Yeah,
indeed. I mean, let's be honest, everyone likes the Porsche. The BMW is pretty fun car. I've done my fair share of racing in the M8, but the Porsche sounds better, it looks better, and it's a bit more fun to drive. You can hang the tail out just a little bit more. And you really shouldn't in these cars. They've got a bit too much downforce for you to be kind of aiming for that to slide them around. But they do kind of dance a little bit, especially around like the Ferradura sort of section where you're going up through that double right hand. They will dance around just a little bit. Obviously, like I say, a lot of big names here, a lot of drivers aiming for that Porsche. But we'll kind of understand this. Maybe, I don't know if the BMW is slightly faster in a straight line. I think the Porsche is probably faster in a straight line, if I think about it correctly. It should really be the Porsche a little bit quicker down to the T1.
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Let's have a look at the standings, and these are all Porsches. It's Philip Drace who took the win last time out, with Ilya Drozikov, Turka Hakkinen, Colin Blankenberg, Luka D'Amico inside the top 5. As I mentioned at the start of the show, it is about making that global final. And so those top 5 names are now not going to be particularly worried about making it, or whether they will or whether they won't. They probably will be there now in a fortnight's time, so they won't have to worry too much. For everybody else, they may well do. There's some names who didn't especially have a great race at Daytona, and will be hoping to move up the field and move into a sufficient place to qualify for that global final in 2 weeks' time. But there's the real story in terms of those names. NeveRacing.com were the class of the field, really. If you look at the top of the standings again, it's not quite the same. Turka Hakkinen and Philip Drace and Christian Michel are all following one after the other. However, they're not 1, 2 and 3 this time around, and Ilya Drozikov is up there instead as well. Martin Miskovic is going a little bit better than he was last week as well. It's good to see that we've got a slightly mixed up grid, because Daytona was a bit of a runaway race for NeveRacing.com, and that means, unfortunately for us as neutrals, it's not very exciting viewing.
Yeah, Miskovic obviously has actually improved into second place in fairly recent past. It's going a little bit quicker on this lap, although I don't think it'll be enough to get past Ilya Drozikov at the moment, who currently heads the field. Of course, Miskovic with a little bit of work to do, but that middle sector is not looking super ideal. But again, if the Porsche is leaning towards being slightly better in this final sector, because in the straight lines, people have to wait and see as it punches its way up towards the line. We'll say Philip Drace is going really quickly at the moment with that second sector, pretty average.
He may improve, but whether it's going to be enough to vault over his teammate Turka Hakkinen, I'm not entirely sure. Took his 10th win last week in RaceRoom Ranked Championship competition, only the second driver to reach double figures after Enzo Filippo, who doesn't seem to be participating this season. He does improve. Does he, Drace? Well, if it wasn't by very much at all, and he stays 4th. Looks like everybody's coming in the pit lane. This is a pretty slow end to qualifying. It's Ilya Drozikov who takes pole position with a 1:26.7, 10th and a half ahead of Matej Miskovic. Turka Hakkinen, Philip Drace, Christian Michel round out the top 5 for NeveRacing.com. Mihai Neg is in 6th place ahead of Colin Blankenberg, who was top 5 last week. Thomas Gontier is 8th ahead of the first of the BMW, Sven Mackenberg, followed by his twin Marvin Mackenberg. Well, that is your qualifying results. The race is coming up in a few moments' time. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to round 2 of the GTE Masters. Just had a question in YouTube chat that I want to address just before we get to the race from Anders Farner. Do they have to refuel? There will be a pit stop window for all of that, and I feel like that's going to be a pretty vital part of this race.
Yeah, indeed. So there is a mandatory pit stop which will come in the middle half an hour where drivers will have to come in. I'm pretty sure, I think they have to change a minimum of 2 tyres, if I remember correctly. Right. Which obviously, whilst you're doing that, sticking a little bit of fuel, bish bash bosh, send it back out of the racetrack. I'm pretty sure they do fuel tyres at the same time, which me and you and we're huge fans of. Huge fans.
Oh, we love it, yeah. And doesn't everyone know it as well? based on previous broadcasts. Yeah, so not necessarily they can make an hour, but yeah, as I say, there might be a bit of refueling in that pit stop window, but that's not the important thing in terms of satisfying the mandatory pit stop that you talk of. 2 tyres, as you say, is correct. Track position, I'm not entirely sure how it's going to be important, because I always said at Daytona, you know, it's good to be at the front because you want to be out of crashes, but also you should be able to overtake. But actually, it turned out it was quite difficult. So maybe that qualifying session we've just seen is going to be quite important.
I think it is. I mean, look, the thing is, overtaking around here is actually pretty difficult. We even saw this in the a little bit in the season finale in the M4s, particularly in the first race. The second race was, you know, just carnage, as you'd expect. But the first race was a little bit calm, was a little bit harder to overtake, and I expect, obviously, with these cars, with the speed they take around Interlagos, it is going to be quite difficult for them to overtake. It's going to come down to that run down into turn 1, where we're going to see a little bit of drama, fair enough, as you always do. The run down into turn 4 as well, the Ski Lago, you kind of need to make a move there. I think after that point, I think it'll actually be relatively difficult to make up too much ground. So if you've not qualified well, yeah, you might be back up against it.
Let's see who does well in this race. We're a few seconds away from the beginning of the second round in the GTE Masters. We've got one more round before the global final. It's Imola after this, but Interlagos for now will set the scene for that second half of the season in the final championship for season 1 of the RaceRoom Rank Championship for 2024 underway here at Interlagos, and it's a great start through the middle by Christian Mikel by the looks of things. He looks down the inside of Matej Miskovic in towards turn 1, and he gets it on the way down into the centre S. He is through. Rocket start from the German right up to second place behind Ilya Drobosikov. Matej Miskovic is under all sorts of pressure as well here from Turka Hakkinen, and Philip Drace, last week's winner, is looking for a position here too. They weave down the straight towards turn 4. Here goes Hakkinen down the inside of Matej Miskovic, who's really going backwards here on the outside. He's going to try and hold it out in time for Ferradura in a few moments time. Not a good start for the Hungarian. He keeps going backwards.
Yeah, NeedRacing.com about to start taking over here. Philip Dryce looking to the outside as we head into Ferradura. We hit the first apex, hit the second apex, looking straight back down the inside. Could be a big commitment here coming in from the German as Philip Dryce sends one, makes a little bit of contact, could lose out to the Romanian Mihai Neg as they work their way through Pinarino.
It was a very brave dive, and the first ever RaceRoom Rank champion Mihai Neg is looking for a position. So is Thomas Gontier. He's already made up a place here as the Frenchman. He's got another up towards turn 10, up to P6. Great overtaking, pretty opportunistic as well for him to fire down the inside of the Romanian.
I think was that Blankenberg was having a little bit of a look there. Certainly was, as he's trying to find his way past on Mihai Neg. We head up the hill, you can see a lot of white ball. My goodness, I don't think Mihai Neg realised he was there. Some spatial awareness problem, that's fine, we're not too well. I will say, turn 1, a couple of contacts, a couple of bits of issues. Andreas Sherman and Gaspar Misch going down the order after contact down at T1. They're running 33rd and 34th as the defence move comes in as Miskovic going to keep Philip Dryce at bay for now.
Spurish is having a bit of a disaster this season, but I'll save my puns for later. Here comes Philip Drace on the straight towards turn 4. This is the retro posture towards Desida de Lago, and he is down the inside again here. Is he just looking, or is he going for it? No, he's just looking. Like he's shop window shopping, if you like, at the moment. He's just looking at 4th place and deciding his moment to strike. In towards the middle sector they'll go again. Smooth start for Ilya Drobosikov, but I think he was pretty pleased with qualifying in that he was maybe having a little bit more distance on those who are also in the same livery as he in the Porsche. Don't think he'll be especially enthused by the fact that Christian Mikel's already right on the back of him at mere seconds into that race.
Blankenberg going for a bit of a slide as well there, as we'll look a little bit further back, as Vigneron embroiled in the fight back here, obviously battling it out with the BMW there of Michael Dufek, as he just tries to keep them at bay. It's quite a tight little battle group in this. I did want to touch very quickly on tyres, because there is a slight compound difference. Mihai Neg is the highest placed driver on the medium compound. Everyone else is on soft around. I believe the next highest driver on the mediums is Vigneron, who we're looking at here.
Yep, I believe you are correct. Down at the back of the field, it's more half and half actually, but for the leaders, they've all gone for softs. At the moment, side by side, here goes Blankenberg, and Mihai Neg, I'm afraid, is not having a great start to this race. There is the visual look on the left-hand side for you, and it shows that Neg is going to go backwards. Now, this is going to be interesting here to have a look at through the pit stop window. Does that mean he will only take 2 tyres during the pit stop window, whereas maybe some of the others will plump for 4, or will it just mean he continues to go backwards on a harder compound all day long? It's hard to imagine that he will be the slowest car for the entire race. Surely this race will come to him later.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, normally, like at least on RaceRoom, with my little light experience with this kind of stuff, is typically speaking, I'd rather be on the softest compound available. Going lower than that, the advances are too minimal. I don't know if that's 100% exactly what Mihai Neg was aiming for, especially when you consider pretty much everyone else has gone for the soft compound tyres. It's kind of one of those one strength in numbers. If there was more 50-50 up in that group, I'd be a bit more understanding. But the fact that it's just one in a sea of 21 other cars, where it's like, yeah, you're basically the only one in that top grouping on the mediums. But hey, maybe it's also an excuse, something to throw. Well, I did that well, but I was, but I wasn't a medium. So.
Well, there is that, but also when you're on your own like that in the top 20, there is a sense of either I'm going to be an absolute hero here, or I've made a catastrophic error, and there isn't very much in between, unfortunately. So we'll wait and see what happens for Mihai Neg here, but the odds are stacked in his favour, put it that way. Here, oh dear, and too much round the outside, I'm afraid, for Johannes Korf, who was trying to go right the way round on Luca D'Amico, I think it was, and in the end he sent himself around through turn 1. He'll rejoin outside the top 20, but that was over ambition in towards the first corner.
Yeah, see that so much down into T1. Obviously the overcommitment on the outside on the brakes, just trying to lock the car down, and was unable to get that one stopped by the time they got down into the first corner, and it dropped the rear end around. This is looking back towards Marvin Mackenberg and Luca D'Amico, who's on the charge. No reverse grid race, because it's just a single race here in the GTE Masters, which D'Amico was pretty much a reverse grid master. He's so good at defending, especially in the M2s. Right at the start of this season of the RaceRoom Rank Championship. Distinctly remember in the reverse grid race, he did such a good job with keeping people at bay, especially to hang on to the reverse grid placement. None of that this season. It is pure drive it out your skin and see what you can come out with at the checkered flag.
On board with Luca D'Amico here in towards the final corner. This is Chow. We had a discussion about this a year or so ago about the right way to pronounce that, but I've immediately forgotten it, so we'll just go with what my wrong pronunciation from before. Here goes Philip Drace in the slipstream. This is going to be a slam dunk surely in towards turn 1. He's been prying for ages, but now is the time to strike with 54 minutes to go. The series leader and the race winner from 1 week ago moves up to 4th place.
Mikiewicz did not fight that one. I think he's playing a slightly longer game here. The more he fights, the more he wears his tyres, the more of a problem that could be later on. Again, you've still got to play the strategy game and think about the entirety of this race as a whole hour-long process rather than just the brief moment of the single battle. Luca D'Amico going on the attack, and speaking of playing the long game, Marvin Mackenberg most certainly backed out of that one.
Marvin Mackenberg promising to us in the YouTube chat last week that he would use the BMW for at least one round of this season. I didn't realise he would quite do it only 7 days later, but there we go. He has done, along with his brother Sven, who is also in the BMW in 10th place. It was interesting at Daytona, actually, the amount of Porsches that we were seeing and the amount of BMWs as well, in terms of there were only 2 or 3, and the fact that they were both and all outside of the top 20. It would be easy after that to have a discussion about BOP, but actually what's being shown here is that these 2 cars, I would say, are pretty equal, and if they were all in the same cars right now, we wouldn't really raise eyebrows at the Mackenbergs being 10th and 12th, would we? It just shows that 2 cars are equal. You just got to get 2 equal drivers to drive them.
Yeah, I mean, look, the BMW seems fine. I mean, the fact that Sven and Marvin Mackenberg normally, I'd maybe say it's a little low for them. I'd maybe see that there'd be like 5th, 6th, 7th in that kind of area. That's where I'd normally expect them. Speaking of that battle, Mihai Neg defending a little bit by Rokas to be, defending it a bit deep into T1, makes contact with the highest placed medium tyre runner, who's dropped 2.3, 2.4 seconds off the rear of the Colin Blankenberg. I'd say they're fairly balanced, but the thing is, if you go around and do laps in yourself and you realise that one car's 0.2 a lap quicker than the other, which one are you going to take? The one that's 0.2 a lap quicker, obviously.
I think the Mackenberg are here for a bit of fun more than anything, to be honest. I don't think they've got particular designs on winning.
Fun doesn't exist in sim racing. Remove fun. The sim racing is a super serious topic with no fun whatsoever. Right?
Some people have their way, yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Oh dear. Sven Mackenberg looking to make moves then. Rokas to be maybe having his momentum knocked back a little bit after that move in towards turn 1. It sounds weird for me to say this, and it's probably stating the obvious. It doesn't seem like it was a great idea to go straight into the back of Mihai Negin towards turn number 1, it turns out. And so he's had the momentum knocked out of him, and here comes Sven Mackenberg through the middle sector. Luca D'Amico right behind him as well. Marvin Mackenberg was quite close recently too, but he dropped just over half a second back. Then it's Alexei Evtushenko. Billy Krevy is in 14th place. Petter Daniel's quite a long way back for him. He's 15th. Just ahead of Tim Roche, and then that's the end of the train. But it's unmistakable that Mihai Neg is the cork in the bottle here, and he's creating all sorts of other battles. Luca D'Amico is going to benefit from one of them by going down the inside and towards turn number 1 into the top 10 for the Italian, surely. Well, he's run out of steam though towards the end of the straight and doesn't get the place.
Yeah, that was more about slipstream. My goodness me, Rokas to be out way wide down into T1. Sven Mackenberg was close to going for something, but it was more about slipstream as well. Look a little bit further back to Prinda and Ramal. Wow, that was terrible from the Brazilian driver. Prinda sneaks his way straight past, fair enough. Yeah, it was as soon as you pulled out the slipstream, if someone else has a slipstream, that's enough to keep them in bay as Marvin Mackenberg keeps Evtushenko at bay.
Side by side though, on the way towards Ferradura. This would be special if he can go around the outside here, and he can't. That would be quite extraordinary. Evtushenko though gets right at the back of the BMW on the way in towards the slower corners on this circuit, through the likes of turn 8, then at the longer and more frustrating turn 9 before Bico de Pato, which is sometimes an overtaking place, but certainly not if you're this far back. Alexei Evtushenko will stay behind, look for the exit and the run down the hill, and set yourself up on the way out of Junxiao. It did seem there was a bit of tunnel vision going on in turn number 1 between these guys. Rokas to be broke a bit late, and so did Ben Mackenberg as a result. Luca D'Amico couldn't quite take advantage of it. Speaking of taking advantage of mistakes, Alexei Evtushenko might well do just that. Marvin Mackenberg went a bit wide there, and the Porsche may well strike now on the bigger BMW. It goes Evtushenko in the slipstream. He ducks to the inside, but as he said earlier, he'll hit that wall of air on the way in towards turn 1. He'll have to brake late, and does so. Parks it on the apex, parks his car in front of Mackenberg's. That was a good pass for 12th place.
Yeah, it was really tidy, just timed really well, had the run at the right time, and just fully committed to it by looking down the inside at T1. This is back up to the battle for 3rd position as Dries has moved his way up to 3rd now, ahead of Turka Hakkinen. Look at the enormous margin, though, from Dries up towards Christian Michael and Ilya Drovosekov, who run 1st and 2nd in this race. It's a huge margin, nearly 3 seconds between the pair of them. Mate Bikovic staring at the back of the NeedRacing.com duo of Dries and Hakkinen, just thinking, how has that gap grown so fast?
Don't really know. Don't really have an explanation for that, because it's not even like we saw signs of it in qualifying. It was all very close in qualifying between the top positions, as Evtushenko's dropping like a stone, and there's why. In towards turn 9. I reckon that's a hangover from turn 8, where things started to go wrong, and then he was backwards by turn 9. Not sure about that one, unfortunately, but was in that battle with the likes of Marvin Mackenberg. Wonder whether there was contact involved. You would imagine so, as speaking of a Mackenberg, here's the other one. Sven Mackenberg looking down the inside of Rokas to be on the way down the front straight.
Yeah, should have this move tidied up by the time they get down to T1. We'll see if there's any major straight line speed differences between the two cars now, and whether the Porsche is going to hang firm straight to the outside. It does seem as though the Porsche is faster in a straight line. It's a little bit ahead as they get down towards the apex of turn 1. It's a little bit of a squeeze from Rokas to be. And he's now gone out wide going through the second part of the centre race. This is not done. It will be sorted, hopefully, between this group by the time they get down the end of the Retta Aposta.
I think he'll be toast by turn 4 here. Rokas to be. Mackenberg looks to the inside, but no. I thought he would be able to capitalise from that better exit a little bit more, but not able to. Stays right behind the Porsche though, through turn 5 as well. This is a good battle between these two, thoroughly enjoyable so far. This group, we've seen more overtaking in this race already than what we had at Daytona, and we're only a quarter of an hour in here. It's been good action so far at the second round of the GTE Masters here at Interlagos. Watching the battle for 9th place, which Mijaneg has been able to get himself away from. Is this down to battling, or is medium tyres starting to come to him?
I mean, it's probably more down to battling, let's be honest. But again, we'll have to wait and see. We're about, like I say, 2 minutes away from that pit window being open. But right now, like I say, we are seeing some pretty interesting fighting. Maybe not the highest IQ battling, but hey, do you know what? I'm having fun watching it. That's the important bit. That is way too tight of a line from Rokas to be going through the final corner, and surely will be a sitting duck. But as that BMW M8, I mean, it's so big. As soon as it pulls out of the slipstream, it has to swallow so much air to make any move. Pure science.
Yeah, the aerodynamics of a brick, to be honest. It's not very slipstream. It's streamlined, excuse me. Not very slipstream, just doesn't really make sense. They both go wide in towards turn 1, and surely Luca D'Amico is going to have a better chance this time. It has happened before like this, but he couldn't capitalise, but this time he can. Inside at turn 3, that's what Luca D'Amico was waiting for. His moment to strike, and he's taken it. This time at the second opportunity. Into the top 10 for the first time this race. He's got a long way to go if he wants to replicate his result from 1 week ago, but he is now at least on the right path, up to 10th place. As we have a look at that in the top left hand side of the screen, it's just popped up. We're less than a minute away from the pit stop window.
Yeah, but of course it is a mandatory pit stop, so every single driver on this grid will have to stop and change at least 2 tyres. But how they'll play their strategy is almost entirely up to them, but you do have to come down to the pit, and that was really nicely done by Luca D'Amico, and brave as well to have switched back to the inside and kind of just kept the foot in, kept it planted, and committed to the move on Sven Mackenberg, and completed that by the time they've come down through turn 3. It's just a really, like I say, really solid move. But it's not done yet, and let's see how many drivers would like to make up as much progress as possible before we get into the pit stops, or maybe anyone will bail. It will open. Ooh. No, it's not. It's not going to be open. Just it's so close there.
Anyone fancy a risk here? Oh, I think Sven does. He does. Oh goodness, Sven Mackenberg with a big risk. Is it going to pay off for him? Did the pit stop? Oh, it did. I think it did. I think the pit stop window just opened in time. That's a supreme risk from Sven Mackenberg, but I think it's paid off. Fair play to him. Out of turn 2, where they go again, and Villacrev is all over the place. Petter Daniel down the inside, but he's going to get slowed up by it too. And Tim Roche is going to have the run on both of them here. Down the Retroposta. There he is in the light blue. You can just see him looking down the inside, but he doesn't go for it. He drives himself straight into the grass. What's he doing there? Oh, he's off the road. Oh, that was a comedy of errors, I'm afraid, for the German. As he looked to the inside, it was all in vain. In the end, he drove himself straight onto the grass and drove himself straight off the road.
He's made an absolute mess of that, my goodness. We'll find out, by the way, if Sven Mackenberg's pit stop does count when he leaves pit lane. If where it says P at the moment, if that turns to a green circle with the number 1 in it. If it just says 1, but there's no green check next to it, then that doesn't count.
There we go.
There we go. So it has counted. So that is his requirement done. That is it. I did wonder. I was watching it counting down, thinking it's really close. Clearly close enough for Sven Mackenberg to think, right, let's jump out of this train, thanks.
I mean, I love a risk taker in a race like this, and that was a risk I've not seen for quite some time, so fair play to him for that. I wonder if he did have to slow down a little bit earlier than he otherwise might have, just to make the window. I'm not sure, but it was close, that's for sure. His brother's in as well, by the way. Marvin Mackenberg also comes into the pit lane to leave these guys out there battling, and maybe this is exactly why they're doing it. D'Amico looks to the outside. He can't find a way through. You called it low IQ battling earlier on. See, we're being entertained, but I'd maybe agree it isn't the best idea that we're seeing these guys battle at the moment, but what can you do here if you've got a driver at the front of the train like this, defending for his life, and he's not as quick as you, that you haven't got much choice than to engage in the battle?
I mean, low IQ battling isn't exactly the fairest term, but let's be honest, when you're talking at the highest level, drivers and such, typically speaking, battling is not conducive to good lap times. Normally you'd want the battling to happen after every, basically I would only want to start battling once everyone's been in the pit lane, and then we've all kind of settled themselves up. In the early stages, when you feel like you're losing time, you feel like you have to get after it. Look how close this lot are leaving pit lane. Of course, the first of which in this red car, it says it is on Patel, I think it might be Marvin.
No. Marvin Mackenberg's had a very slow stop. That's the point here, I think. And Sven Mackenberg has too. So the Mackenbergs have got a different strategy to the others, and it's brought them out last and second last, I'm afraid. So I don't know what the twins have got up their sleeve here, but it's going to have to be something. Dufek has gone straight off the road at turn 4 on the exit of the pit stop as well here, and the outlap, so that's not a great start for him, I'm afraid. But how interesting is it that it's 5 of the 9 or 10, half of the BMWs already into the pit lane, including the 2 inside the battle for the top 10.
It is indeed interesting that 5 of the 10 BMWs were correct. You should trust your maths, it's fine.
There in the end.
It's interesting that they've all bailed, come down to pit lane. Maybe it's because the BMWs are struggling to make moves on the Porsches coming down to T1. Pure theory here, and just speculating. That if those BMWs are struggling to make moves on the Porsches, they're all kind of on the same sensors. Let's get out of the train and use the actual overall lap speed of the BMW. Or maybe it's better on older tyres. They're thinking, look, let's just get ready to be on older tyres later on. I don't know, science.
Well, I think we'll have a clearer picture at the end, but it doesn't make much sense right now, I must admit. Alexei Yevtushenko is into the pit lane too. He's the first of the Porsches to make his way down pit lane. Not even 4 minutes into the window here. I wonder whether we'll see one of these 3 in soon, because we are already getting to that stage where guys at the front pitting could mean traffic immediately. And the likes of Jim Best, who hasn't stopped yet, Daniel Gras as well, who is not that far ahead of him, could well get in the way of drivers who want to make that early pit stop. Ilya Drovosagov certainly going to wait a while until he makes his pit stop of the day, I think. But it's interesting. I thought Philip Drace, when he got to the front of that group, would drive away, but that's not happened. He's not made any impression on this gap to the leader either.
Do you know what? I think that this group, that these 4 NeedRacing.com drivers, unless the tyres really go off quite aggressively, I think they are going to stay out for as late as possible. And that's how I would do it, because the thing is, you really don't want to get stuck in traffic. And that would be all I'd be thinking about. If I pit now to try and tick that pit stop off, all I'd think is that I'm going to get stuck in traffic. And you've got to avoid that as best you can. By the way, the green and gold car that's come out, that isn't any one position, obs. That is Alexei Yevtushenko at the rear of the field, who has pitted and has obviously come out in this train. It's just allowed the likes of Matej Mikovic to make the move. So Yevtushenko just cruising around.
Yeah, he had a very long stop, 20 seconds off the back of the Mackenbergs at the moment, and I don't think I know he had that spin. I don't think he was that far back beforehand, but he may well have been, not entirely sure. But did come out just in front of Miskovic, who right before that had made a slight mistake that allowed Yevtushenko to slot into the gap. Now, so that there is a gap between those front 3, it is just Trace and Hakkinen now in that group, and Miskovic is no longer there with them anymore. Oh dear, that's the first of those we've seen today. Don't think we got many of those at Daytona. I do remember 1 or 2 though. That was Leon Lisa who got that one though, and he will drop even further down. He's 33rd as things stand. He'll do well to not finish last, I think, as things stand, because of that drive-through penalty for him. In some ways, this pit lane entry is actually quite similar to Daytona. Big speed, not a very complicated entry, but an important braking zone to make. As meanwhile, Rokas de B cannot let go of 9th place. He goes shoulder to shoulder now with Luca D'Amico.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, look, it was a kind of a poor exit again, unfortunately. But this time it was a poor exit from D'Amico. Oh my goodness me! Villa Cravey coming straight through. Luke D'Amico sent straight on. Peter Daniel's going to come through and all that. That was quite a bit of contact.
Yeah, he muscled his way through, that's for sure. Le Cravey. Now it's his go at 9th place. Well, that was quite a moment between Cravey and D'Amico. D'Amico actually looking that he managed to save that, because it looked at one stage as if he was heading straight for wall. Although it is quite a long way away, I suppose, down there at turn 4. Didn't quite manage it. He gathered the car up just in time. Maybe it's time for him to make a pit stop here, because these guys are increasingly stuck behind Rokas de B, who will not let go of 9th place. Again, doesn't make a lot of sense, but there we go. It's entertaining. Philip Trace is into the pit lane meanwhile. First of the real big names to come in from that front 5, which is very interesting. And Luca D'Amico is indeed, as I suggested, coming into pit lane.
Yes, indeed. So the first of the top 4 of the heavy hitters into pit lane. Let's see what the gap's going to be. Obviously, D'Amico also coming in and so getting out of that fight he was in with Villacrevi and the like. So obviously jumping in. Speaking of that fight, Villacrevi taking a lot of the curb on the exit of what would have been turn 2. It would be the exit there on the inside as they get through Curva de Sol. And now down towards the skid of Interlagos. Is there going to be a move on Rokas to B? Currently running in the 8th position. I will say, Rokas to B's kind of been... when we started commentating the racing stuff, Rokas de B was one of the higher drivers. Kind of dropped off a little bit. I'm glad to see him back up in the top 10 properly as Villacrevi takes a little bit of a look down the inside at Ferradura.
No success this time round for him. Rokas de B, by the way, in terms of RaceRoom rating, in case you're interested, is not in the top 10 in the world. Quite a way off that at the moment. He's 5th place in the Netherlands, behind some drivers you maybe wouldn't expect him to be behind. Kind of goes to your point that maybe he hasn't quite been at the level he used to be a few years ago for the recent past. And as you say, I'm looking at a graph at the moment. It's hard to describe a graph for you in words, but it's trending downwards. Put it that way. It's not going in the right direction for Rokas to be in terms of his rating. So there you go. It just kind of back up your point there. There is Philip Drace going out onto the circuit again. 24th for him now. Doesn't tell you a lot really about where he will be after these pit stops. However, I am looking at the likes of Bratislava at the moment and Martin Prinder and looking and thinking, where are they going to be after these pit stops? Because they're only about 5 seconds or so behind Drace. 5 seconds to where Drace was right now would be 7th place, 8th place, something like that. They might well be in the top 10 after these pit stops if things shake out in their favour.
Yeah, and I can imagine the only way they've really done that is by maybe them taking 2 tyres and everyone else in that group has taken 4. To have made such a jump, which is fine, but that can come to bite you quite hard at the end of the race, as Vigneron and Zitska are both into the pit lane. Once again, looking at the fight, a little bit of a mistake there for Daniel on the rear of the Villacrevi, as he just misjudges the brakes just a touch. Again, this whole section is really quite awkward. It's all very single file as we head into Biga de Pato. You're absolutely right, you can make a move into here, but you've got to be alongside, otherwise you dive down the inside and then you absolutely batter someone off like what Lewis Hamilton did to Alex Albon. I'm not salty, but he did absolutely eliminate Alex Albon.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, he's had more than one incident around here. Wondering which one it was. Meanwhile, Colin Blankenberg makes his way into pit lane as Martin Prinder goes off. I was just saying how he might be in a good position here. Fortunately, that is going to put an end to that. Martin Prinder at turn 4 looks like he's been off the road. And some of those at front, by the way, will be breathing a sigh of relief because Rokas de B is into pit lane now, releasing Villacrevi and Petter Daniel. Luca D'Amico might not be breathing a sigh of relief, though. I'll laugh, put it that way, if Rokas de B comes out directly ahead of the Italian.
I've got to say, with Prinder there and along with a couple of the others, like we have seen a few drivers spinning. Obviously, you know, once they've jumped onto these fresh tyres, if you're going onto 2 tyres rather than all 4, the problem is you can get such an aggressive imbalance of grip. And it can just spin you round almost uncontrollably, and I wonder if that is what's happened to Prinder there, which is why a lot of drivers would prefer to go for 4, because then the grip's at least equal all the way around. As Blankenberg will leave pit lane, Rokas de B will leave in just a second as we stare at Gaspar and Daz Higgs, who actually had a spin earlier on. Gaspar obviously had a problem right at the very first lap of the race as he dropped down the order. Daz Higgs had a problem after a couple of laps, so that's a big slide at Ferradura.
It is. It seems to be that Porsches do that from time to time. Just slide about a bit. This is side by side between some of the BMWs and Obratalis going backwards here. By the looks of things, Sven Mackenberg, the first one to go through. Marvin Mackenberg is going to go through as well here. Identical liveries, so let's get these two apart as quickly as possible, please. Down the inside they go. Marvin Mackenberg through, and I think you're right. That is the sort of difference we're seeing in terms of tyres. And if this is happening after about 10 minutes, goodness knows what their tyres are going to be like in 33.
We have a conversation about red and black liveries earlier on before we went live about certain drivers that used to race for red and black livery teams, and yes, you're absolutely right, the top 4 they are all driving black and red, well, to be fair, top 3, because of course we did see the pit stop coming from Philip Dryce, so That's why we're waiting to see on that one. As Daz Higgs continues to fight with Gaspar Misch, not too far off the rear end of this fight is also Underwood.
I think it is going to be top 4 when it all cycles through, but for the moment, Drace is way down in 19th place. This is Petter Daniel, just on the back of Villacrevi. It would make me giggle slightly if these two get out of a train behind Rokers to be and immediately go into battle themselves, but it's looking like what they might do here. For 7th place, Villacrevi and Petter Daniel have both been stealthily making their way through the field, although some of those, in fact quite a few of those places have been made up through the pit stop window. They are still yet to pit, and indeed more than half the field still is, although luckily for them they have just over half the window still to do it. Turkka Hakkinen is going to come into pit lane. Meanwhile, don't know whether the pit icon just turned up quite late or whether he did lose a couple of places there, but I think it was probably the former, as he pulls now down the end of pit lane, ready to slot into his box. Don't forget, it was a podium finish for him at Daytona 1 week ago. Looking to repeat that. He's in a decent place to repeat that here today, although he is going to have to beat Philip Drace, which is no easy feat.
Do like a little bit of Turkka Hakkinen, known him obviously for quite a few years now, has achieved quite a lot in the world of sim racing, as Liza's had a bit of a spin around or an issue again, as Daz Higgs is going for the move once more on Gaspar Misch to the outside at T1. That's going to be a little bit brave if he can make that one stick, or he nearly took the Esteban Ocon line there at the second apex, alas there was no contact between the pair of them, and they're also battling for positions, there is that. The Gaspar Misch is able to fend them off.
Do you think that was Ocon's fault?
No.
I was going to say, the pause there. Oh dear. Meanwhile, Sven Mackenberg makes his way through, and so will Marvin Mackenberg. Yeah, this circuit certainly has had its fair share of iconic crashes and incidents down the years.
I got my first ever sim racing podium here.
Wow, really?
2014, yeah.
My first ever sim racing podium was a win. So, there you go.
Yeah, but it would have been in some weak source league. I had one.
Oh!
Kevin Stigman was on the grid, I'll have you know. Along with a lot of drivers you've never heard of.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Anyway, less about us. Thomas Gontier comes into pit lane from the top 5. He's made good progress in the opening part of this race. Petter Daniel is, I guess, responding to Villacrevi here, although Crevi has dropped way behind it, even Luca D'Amico now, so might not be very good reading here for the likes of Petter Daniel here when he makes his way out again. I think there's been some real variation here as to how many tyres everyone's taken on.
It is a circuit where you can see that variation, because as much as the loads are hard, because it can be quite hard to pass around here, especially if you've got the brakes set up quite nice and you're pretty comfortable with it down into T1. It can be a really difficult circuit to overtake at. So it can be one that you can get away with 2 tyres on, especially when it slides around the middle. You can actually gain a little bit of time if it slides around, if the car's dancing a little bit more. As Gontier, goodness me, second driver to have picked up a drive-through for speed in the pit lane. Oops.
Oh dear, oh dear. Well, meanwhile, Ilya Dovzikov's going to be hoping to avoid that, and I think maybe broke a little bit earlier than was absolutely optimal, just to make sure that he did. Interesting that these two and Christian Mikel following go for the split it in half strategy. 29 minutes to go. When they crossed the line last time, probably would have been closer to halfway, but anyway, let's not be pedantic. They're in now with 29 to go, and very much trying to keep the tyre wear even throughout the race, really, rather than anything tactical with those around them. I guess one of the reasons for that, there isn't anybody around them, so they can evenly spread the wear without worrying about ending up behind someone or tactically missing out.
Yeah, if you're going to change all 4 tyres, you might as well spread the wear and just do it evenly, because at least then you're not kind of going into too much uncharted territory. Also, you're balancing it out. If they're dropping off quite a lot around the half-an-hour mark, or even if just consistently, then obviously you do percentage-wise gain a fair amount. So it kind of makes sense. If they plateau, you might as well just stay out on them a little bit, but I think they're constantly kind of dropping a little bit. Here comes the move from Turkka Hakkinen, getting past Lukic on the race down into turn 1. Should be a nice, easy move once he gets onto the brake. And Turkka Hakkinen moves up to 9th position. Let's see how tight it is in the exit of pit lane.
Very is the answer. Ilya Drovskov's been caught by Christian Mikel, and they're absolutely nose to tail on the way out of pit lane. There they are, and right in front of them, Turkka Hakkinen is right there as well, or just behind them, I should say. So Ilya Drovskov will still lead here. Christian Mikel will be second, and it will be Turkka Hakkinen third. Philip Drace has lost some time here. remains to be seen quite why, but he will have some work to do now, and Ilya Drobzhikov is going to have a bit more defending to do, because kind of away from our cameras while we were watching all of the other battling that was going on, Ilya Drobzhikov was just gently, 10th by 10th, extending his margin in the lead of the race.
What if he had, I was going to say maybe lower fuel or something like that at the start of the race? No idea. But either way, the pit stops have dragged this lot all close to each other. Let's see if needracing.com will say, go on lads, have a little bit of a fight. Philip Dries isn't too far off the back of this. Matej Mikovic has come into the pit lane then. So where's he going to come out comparatively to all this? Again, a slow exit here, because look at that from Underwood, who's done a poor one out through the final corner. Is going to allow Ilya Drobzhikov to come through. But it's most certainly slowed down the Swiss driver.
It's going to be very, very interesting here, and this could bunch the field up entirely. Just up in front of them is a South African, Jason Underwood, who is not quite going to give up. Down the inside goes Christian Mikel, trying to follow Ilya Drobzhikov through. It's pretty important for him to do this, and he's not going to... Oh, that was close! In towards turn 2. Very much a Nestor lock-on situation, very nearly, as Turkka Hakkinen now is going to be coming through on Underwood. Just behind them will be Drace, and where is Matej Mikovic? He's behind Drace, and there he pops out in the blue and white just in the background. So it will be 5th place net when he comes out again here at the end of this pit stop phase. So actually the top 5 has stayed the same. The main change, Philip Drace has dropped to 4th place, and he's dropped some time as well.
Yeah, indeed. That would have been from pitting earlier and getting caught a little bit in traffic. Still 11 minutes left to go of the pit lane sequence. When there's 15 minutes left to go, that's where it's over. Oh, my goodness me. Nearly 4 wide as we head down into here. You've got Daniel, you've got Rush, you've got Philip Cravey also in tow as they're all trying to sneak their way past. That's Rush trying to get to the outside. I'm assuming there's not quite as much grip on the car of the German.
Well, yeah. Well, yes, is the short answer. Very wide for Tim Roche. Here goes Petter Daniel down the inside. He's actually got ahead of Philip Cravey now in that pit stop phase, and he slides just in front of Tim Roche there as well. Nice moving towards turn 9 for Petter Daniel. Philip Cravey really needs to follow through quickly and can't quite do it at the Bica de Pato. He'll have to wait for turn 1 by the looks of things. You see the field in the track map on the top right. The field is spread out absolutely everywhere as things stand. Mihanek is still leading. He's on the medium tyres, and maybe they are starting to come to him a little bit with 25 minutes remaining in the race. Maybe he'll change tyres at the pit stop here and go on to some soft for a real dash in the last 15 minutes.
Well, I mean, lap time wise, based on where he was running, his best lap time, Mihanek, is a 28.5. His last lap time was a 28.7, so they're kind of pretty even throughout, but it is still around about a second slower than needracing.com drivers. It's kind of where we were expecting, but it does mean that maybe the soft tyres were still the option. We'll have to wait and see. Big slide there from Rush, and now he is going to lose out, I think, to Philip Cravey. He's getting to the outside as they head through Curva de Sol, now onto the Reta Apostolon, down towards Skidoo de Largo, and Mihai Neg, he's had a spin away.
No! Oh, Mihai Neg, what a good drive he's had so far today. What a shame that is to see on the way into pit lane there. I wonder if he thought it was the old pit lane, just stayed to the right, stayed to the left next to the wall. Don't know, of course, but pretty red-faced moment, I'm afraid, for the Romanian. He'll making his way in. Along with, following him in, is Christian Romero, who we haven't seen very much of this season, but good to have him on home turf here at Interlagos. So, Ilya Drobzhikov will be in the lead, although the car right in front of him won't suggest that necessarily. It's the driver in front, by the way, is Andreas Sherman, who is becoming a little bit of a nuisance, a bit of a chicane for them, just to negotiate. I'm sure they'll be fine, and indeed he pulls out the way very nicely for the two leaders. So, Ilya Drobzhikov leads ahead of Christian Mikel. Then it's Turkka Hakkinen in 3rd place, ahead of Philip Drace in 4th. And there's some gaps to close here. Drace especially has some big gaps to close, and Turkka Hakkinen at the moment doesn't look like he's quite got the speed of the two in front, never mind catching them.
Of course, becomes our first retirement from the race as well, so he's dropped out of it. We're waiting for one driver then in the top grouping to come into the pit lane. Again, still got plenty of time, 7 minutes left to go as Ramau comes out of pit lane. It's just Underwood who are waiting to come down onto pit lane. By the way, the last lap that Ilya Drobzhikov set, fastest lap of the race. Yellow flag out now for Rush, and I do believe, again, this is the whole two-tyre strategy, which I just don't think works. I think you have too much of an imbalance of grip between the two tyres that you have changed to the two that you didn't. That's why I think a lot of the two-tyre runners, the ones that switch just for two tyres, they pitted really early to do the two tyres because then the difference in grip isn't as great. But still, if you're doing it late on, yeah, it's not ideal.
It was suggested to us earlier, wasn't it, that an hour would be too far for these tyres, even if you're just keeping two of them on. It does seem that is the case. Looking at some of the well-placed BMWs at the moment, by the way, they will be having a lot of defending to do. Thinking of guys like Martin Dufek in 12th place, Obertal and Prinder in 16th and 17th will have some defending to do here as well towards the latter end of this race. The likes of Marvin and Sven Mackenberg, though, should be on the move. They were a little bit longer in the box than their other BMWs, who came in pretty much as the pit stop window opened. In Sven Mackenberg's case, literally the second it did open, and so that's now vaulted him up to 7th place with that little bit of clean air. I would suggest, though, that's probably the best he can get from this race, and it's a job of defending now for the remainder.
Fastest laps just come in from Christian Mikel, who's sat in second position at the moment. And not only that, he set the fastest first sector by quite a margin. Drovosekov has returned serve a little bit in the middle sector as he set the fastest middle sector of the race. First time that it's broken the 1 minute barrier, breaking across that second sector. So it is looking pretty strong for the Swiss driver, but it does seem as though the NeedRacing.com drivers, yes, sure, they're running first, second, third and fourth. The old classic, they really are dominating. Hashtag Team Redline. It is boring that another team that's dominating is another black and red team. It does seem as though Drovosekov is the one in control at the moment.
That seems to be a popular thing in sim racing at the moment. And by the way, with Christian Mikel setting the fastest lap of the race last time round, as you say, it sounds like the gap would have come clattering down, but it didn't. And indeed, Ilya Drovosekov has returned serve this time round and gone that little bit quicker. Again, though, it's not like there are big gaps between them. 3/4 of a tenth of a second between the two of them on that last lap in favour of the Swiss driver. So it's barely anything, really. It's somewhat surprising they're able to go this quickly, to be honest, this deep into the stint. But I guess the fuel load is getting lower and the tyres clearly aren't going away from them. They're on the soft tyres, by the way. It's making me wonder even further why the likes of Mihai Neg have gone for the mediums. Guillaume Vigneron is the only other driver inside the top 20 on those tyres.
Yeah, which is obviously what we saw at the start of the race. Once again, Mihai Neg is on those medium tyres, still remained on them, didn't switch. Obviously, I think he's only on 2 tyres. Maybe that's why, because I think the medium tyres will work better if you only do the 2 tyre change we were talking about earlier. This is a little bit awkward with Prinder having the battle. Gontier sneaks his way round. You've got Villacravy as well directly behind. It's all getting very dicey up towards Ferratura. Thomas Gontier has made his way past.
He has. Pretty important pass to make. I would suggest he will away now. It's Luca D'Amico is still trying to make moves. It's Martin Dufek who's trying to hold him back, and at the moment not especially having success. There goes D'Amico definitively through, not giving an awful lot of space to the BMW there. It goes very wide now through the penultimate corner, and now next in line is going to be Christian Brumau or on home soil, I should say. Queuing up behind him is Guillaume Vigneron on those medium tyres. Then Petr Daniel, who's been able to get in this group and has done well to get in this group actually, but Vigneron himself is under a bit of pressure now from the Czech driver. Here goes Daniel looking to the inside. He's going to hit that brick wall of air though, and here goes look from Romao as well, that might just have assisted him, but he didn't need it in the end. Late on the brakes for Petr Daniel, and he goes through on those soft tyres as well.
Yeah, nice move there from Petr Daniel. Went a little bit out wide. There was Obertal behind, and Thomas Gontier is going to make up the position. Up to 16th position goes the Frenchman. So another little bit of progress. That yellow and blue Porsche, by the way, through the foreground shot, that is Eskovsky, who is further down the order, not for position, just dropping a lap on this group, I believe.
Not Jim Best? I think it's Jim
no,
Best.
it wasn't Jim Best, absolutely. I just saw orange and blue. I didn't really look further down.
That's all right.
You're smart than me.
You said George Best, so I'm not that much better off. That's certainly not George Best. Anyway, 8th place, Mihai Neg is ahead of Marvin Mackenberg, as he has been for a while. He's in a bit of a Mackenberg sandwich here. In 8th place is the Romanian.
What?
Maybe Sorry, a little bit lower than we expected to see. But, I mean, he is, after all, recovering from that big crash on the way towards the pit lane entry. Oh, dear, and speaking of crashes, it's not quite so heavy for Underwood, but it is a spin, and he drops to 25th position.
Yeah, big shame there for Underwood. A Mackenberg sandwich, though. Wow. It's a Mihai egg sandwich with Mackenberg bread, but that's fine. It's fine. I can see the smile on your face because you knew it was going to trigger me. As here comes a big look down the inside defence from Dufek, and Ramal's going to make the move. A little bit of contact between himself and Peter Daniel, and yeesh, it's getting a little dicey in this group.
It is. If you ever find yourself in the privileged position of pushing Lewis McGade's buttons, then that is one of the ways.
Something to do with the sandwich.
That's the ultimate way.
There's quite a lot of other ones. Not a lot can be spoken about on this board.
Oh. let's move on. Thomas Gontier goes down the inside of his countryman for 15th place. Guillaume Vigneron going backwards on his medium tyres, as we kind of expected here, and queuing up next is Villacrevi and Obertal next up in 18th place. Marvin Mackenberg is also on the move. This has been a fantastic race, I've got to say. 3/4 of an hour in. Was not particularly enthused by Daytona, thought that would be a spectacular race too, but actually there really wasn't a lot going on last week, especially compared to this race here at Interlagos. Not typically characterised as a circuit that would go toe-to-toe with Daytona for racing action and close finishes. It looks like we've got here, but we're getting that right now. Side by side down the hill as Michal Dufek continues to try and hold on. Yeah,
Dufek's trying as much as he can, but he's just on a one-way trip down the order, unfortunately. Gontier around the outside. Ramal as we head up towards the crest. Obviously, the pit window's about to close in a minute's time, but it is already set anyway. Everyone has already pitted, so don't worry about that. It's a lot of a struggle for the third highest placed BMW driver. He's dropping his way down bit by bit straight to the outside. Ramal's going to go, commits to it, sends it around the outside, and that is a clean sweep. Brilliant move. There's contact now. I spoke too soon.
Yeah, a little bit. Round the outside goes Villacrevi. He's got the run. Oh, there's contact again. 3 wide, just sneaking up the inside. I think it's Guillaume Vigneron at the moment. Side by side with Dufek. It certainly is. Coming in is Martin Prinder as well. Obertal, excuse me. On the way towards turn 4. Very wide for Dufek. Villacrevi is the one who comes out the other side with 14th position ahead of Christian Ramal. Then it's Guillaume Vigneron, Martin Dufek, then Radislav Obertal, and then it's Martin Prinder as well. This has been quite outstanding as the pit window closes. What a battle. Eventually sorted out with the Porsches ahead of the BMWs.
I mean, look, that was all very, very crazy indeed. I think it might calm down a little bit in that battle. We'll have to wait and see. Obertal is the next one to try and pass. Back up to Marvin Mackenberg as he sneaks his way past Mihai Negru again. Is on those medium compounder tyres. Probably didn't have the grip to deal with as Roche has gone for another bit of a spin, unfortunately. And so a little bit further down, he will drop. That's the move done from Marvin Mackenberg. Mihai Negru's not done as he looks to the inside coming down to T1. Oh, it's a little dicey.
Well, it's wide for Mackenberg, and Neg is going to take advantage of that. Our first ever RaceRoom ranked champion over 2 years ago, looking for a move here on Marvin Mackenberg, who is on the inside on the way towards turn 4, and surely will hold the position as a result. Neg will go for the cutback again. Here he goes with that Porsche traction, looking up the inside at turn 5, but that will give him the outside again in time for Ferradura. If he can just keep his nose alongside, he might have a chance in towards at the slower corners. In fact, he's going to give it a go in the fast corner itself. He will have to back out of that one. Will there be a dive inside here? No. Mackenberg again protects the plates. Got to be a little bit careful not to let Roker to be catch up here, but we are in the final stretch. It is very much the time for this kind of battle.
Yeah, absolutely. This is where you can absolutely go for it. This is where maybe you can change how your race could be. You want like Roker's to be. He's probably going to catch Mihai Neg anyway before the end of the race, and I think Mihai will be well aware of that. And so it's like, well, you might as well fight in this battle to see what happens. As Philip Dries is out of the race, a retirement for Philip Dries just there. What has happened? Has he disconnected? Is he still driving around?
There he is, supposedly. What is going on here?
Well, we salute you, Philip Dries. Goodbye.
Oh, and he's pulled, and now he goes. Now he seems to have disappeared. That was, by the way, Martin Miskiewicz right behind him, so actually away from our cameras and away from our notice entirely. He'd been caught by Miskiewicz, I think, just before his DNF, but now he finally turns to red on our timing screens, and that to me suggests that he's our second DNF of the day. Well, he will be very glad he won last week now, because all of a sudden he's got a job to do next week too to make the global final.
Yeah, I wonder if he maybe like disconnected or something and AI had taken over. That's very F1 thing.
Is that possible?
No, I don't know. It's kind of like, it just maybe is why Mickey Richmond was closing. I've got no idea. No words for you, Ewan. We are confirming that he did definitely disconnect, but then I think he disconnected for a while before, but who knows? What an interesting final race for you in the RaceRoom Rank Championship this season, Ewan. It's been an interesting one.
It is my final race, yeah. I'm sad that it is, of course. I think people have heard enough of me, really. I've had 7 rounds out of 12 up to this point, so I think, that's... people are probably ready to hear the back of me now.
Yeah.
Drobosikov, meanwhile, is just under a second in the lead ahead of Christian Mikel, who's that just up in front. It looks like Does Higgs, is it maybe, in the BMW, the British driver, 25th at the moment in the standings. He'll get out the way of one. Will he get out the way of both? Yes, I think slightly reluctantly, but he does. So Drobosikov goes through, and so does Christian Mikel, who can't quite seem to catch at the moment for my money. Christian Mikel hasn't got many points to his name in terms of the standings at the moment, so he does need all the points he can get. Drobosikov doesn't necessarily, because he was second 1 week ago. I wonder whether there will be a bit of teamwork here and Mikel will be worked into the lead, but it was unlikely, to be honest. It feels like the guys have been let loose to fight between themselves.
Yeah, I mean, normally NeedRacing.com have kind of just left them, I say left them to it, but basically said don't fight, but then just kind of like whatever order you're in, that's the order you're going to stay. We don't see them playing many like team games or whatever to try and make things work for them, as that's a big send down the inside from Dufek as he tries to move his way past it, to open the door for Rob Brattal to come through.
Here we go again. This group just continues to entertain. Nearly 3 wide into Ferradura. Very wide for Prinder, even wider for Obratal. That's a disaster, although he will hang on. He'll set the 2 BMWs up side by side now. The 2 Czech drivers, Dufek and Prinder, now almost rolling roadblocks because they're so large in the road. And at the moment, Christian Romao doesn't have anywhere to go. Here comes Manzini and Mish as well, the 2 Slovenians looking for a way through. They're side by side too. Gaspar Mish goes down the inside of Romao and muscles his way through. It's a good recovery for Mish, who had issues on the opening lap of the race. He's now inside the top 20, looking for more as well. This has been a spectacular battle, and the BMWs will do well to hang on in these last 10 minutes.
Yeah, Manzini having a poor drive off the rear end of this, and I think, to be fair, Romao might be able to go for a move on Gaspar Mish coming down into T1, but it's whether he wants to go for this position or wait just a touch and go for the positions on the BMW. I think he's going to go for this here a little bit down to T1. He's going to fill the mirrors. Defensive line comes in from Gaspar Mish. The outside line is going to be taken from Romao. We've seen him sneak around the outside a couple of times throughout the race so far. Leaves it to the inside of T2. Has to jab on the brakes. Could cost him a position to Manzini behind.
These Porsches are almost sabotaging themselves. If they want to finish ahead of the BMWs, then they're going to have to get single file, although the BMWs now might be side by side themselves too. Here goes Michal Dufek down the inside of Martin Prinder. He can't quite get there, and his run out of turn 4 won't be great. Here will go Gaspar Mish on the way towards Ferradura. Will there be moves here? I don't think so. Side by side, meanwhile, between Romao and Manzini, who's looking for a way through on the only driver on home soil here tonight. Romao hangs on to 19th place, so positions do not change this time round, at least going into the middle sector they don't.
Oh, I didn't realise that you and Christian Romao were in the same team.
Very good, very good.
You're
smart.
Thank you. Bad driver as Manzini gets to the outside as they head their way down the hill. Did see him say a move could happen at Biga de Pato. It's taken to the outside of it coming down towards Junta. That's a great move for Manzini.
Bit of contact there. Manzini does go through though. 2 things on that. One, I'm a non-driver because I don't drive anymore, and B, I wasn't the one that crashed our car last year in the 24-hour race that we did together. So
yeah, but I had the fastest lap and the least incidents.
But you had a big win.
Yeah, the one incident I had was pretty stonking. It's fine.
You saved them all up for one big show of incidents. Anyway, let's Let's move on. 8 minutes to go with Michal Dufek still hanging on from Gaspar Misch, who again, I'll reiterate, great recovery from him today. We don't just like him for puns that we can make, but also he is pretty good. And here he goes down the inside towards turn 4. Nope, not this time. As Dufek goes a bit wide, he might just have forced the issue here, Misch, as he goes to the outside on the way towards Ferradura. Again, would be spectacular if someone could do this, but this might be the time we see it. Round the outside in the uphill right-hander. He's still got work to do here. On the way towards turn 8, it's outside again. That'll give him the inside for 9, and I know he's got a tyre advantage, but that was special from Gaspar Misch, who's now up to 17th place.
No mistake there. That was absolutely fantastic. Straight around the outside, just full commitment. Again, it's if you're going to go around the outside of Ferradura, you have to be committed in doing so. And Gaspar Misch was committed, that must be said. Eliza's race is going from issue to issue, unfortunately for him. Obviously, he's had a spin earlier, he's had another one there, and has had a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Back up to our race leader, 6 minutes and 50 seconds left to go in this race. And by the time they get round to start another lap, it will probably be 4 laps left to go.
I reckon it could be 5, but
it'll be 5. I can count. Yeah, it's 5.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say we can take bets because I know I'd win, but
all right.
So it's okay. Anyway, bit of trivia for you, by the way. Ilya Drobskov's leading at the moment. How many times do you think he's won in the RaceRoom Rank Championship?
Ooh.
He hasn't been here as regularly as some of the others, is the reason why I ask.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's definitely a lower number than I would think. I'd probably say only once or twice then.
3 times, actually.
3 times.
I was going to try and work out where he's done it, but my brain's not quite quick enough to do that, so I might tell you later. But it's 3 so far as we say, not a particularly long RaceRoom Rank Championship career, unfortunately. He's been a lot of the special events year after year. It's been away for the ranked events sometimes, but good to see that he's been making a bit more of a regular appearance in 2024. There is Turkka Häkkinen, who himself has got quite a few wins in this series as well. Well, I say quite a few, it's just the one in the Master MX-5s last year in 2023. He looks like he's going to add another podium, exactly where he finished last time round as well, 3rd place at Daytona. He's currently on course to finish there too. Here is Mihai Neg looking to infiltrate the Mackenberg 6 and 7 that we've got going on at the moment. The medium tyres maybe just coming to the Romanian now, and it's a big slide for Marvin Mackenberg. Feels like that one was handed on a plate as the BMW got a little bit loose. Yeah,
I mean, they could be staring at least a 6th place finish here. Colin Blagerberg can be way too far ahead. I will say Colin Blagerberg's been pretty under the radar in this race to run into 5th. Sometimes he does when he's not racing, he will appear in chat. But no, he's doing a great job in this race to be running inside the top 5. Obviously, that one's been handed a little bit to him, courtesy of the disconnection from Drace. There is out wide goes Obratau. Gaspar Misch now to the inside, a little bit of contact there as he tries to squeeze his way past. Could do the outside of Ferradura again. We didn't need to because Obratau's back out of this one.
He's scared them all off. Obratau goes pretty wide himself, actually, and here goes Martin Prinder. Can't quite do it. Would have been forcing the issue there, really, into turn 8 and decides that he's better off not doing that just for the moment. They are just completing, I think they're 4 laps to go at the moment, but we'll check that. They're quite a long way off. The leader of the race, Ilya Drobosakov, who at the moment is just heading his way through the middle of the circuit right now as well. So actually, he's very close behind them. Don't think they're going to get lapped though before the end of the race. There is going to be a fair amount of traffic though for the leader. Will that make a difference with just under 4 minutes to go? It's doubtful, but Christian Mikel will be hoping that it does, so he can take another win. He's on 9 at the moment. Is Christian Mikel in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship, despite being here for a similar, not very long, but he has had 6 Mazda MX-5 wins. I suppose with 3 races a night, you can rack up the wins a little bit more regularly, but not taking anything away from the driving at all. So he has shown. There is the leader. 3.5 minutes to go. It will be 3 laps now for Ilya Drobosakov just to hang on. And by the way, the only win outside of the BMW M2 Cup for Ilya Drobosakov. That's the only car he's ever won in before. Of course it is. I should remember that, really. That season where he won 3/4 of the races, but he didn't quite win the championship.
Yeah, which sometimes that's just the way it goes. Sometimes you've got to be more consistent than just winning all the time. Not all of us can win every single time, so it's fine. Either way, it's a big margin at the moment that Drovosekov is leading by. He's really kind of found his form. I mean, just looking so strong in this race. Any time Christian Michel's got close to the rear end of him, it just seems as though he's been able to deal with it, settles himself, calms himself down, then just disappears off into the distance. Even after the stress of how close it got during the exit of the pit lane battle where things did look pretty tight. Just seems to once again reassert himself as controlled at the top. Got to say though, Matej Mikovic has really closed his way down onto the rear end of the podium battle, and maybe we won't see NeedRacing.com first, second and third, because I think Mikovic might be able to sneak his way past. Oh, they're intervals, it's fine.
I did exactly the same thing. I'm so glad I wasn't talking at the time.
Yeah, fine.
So there's Turkey Hakkinen. I thought it looked weird.
Yeah,
there's Turkey Hakkinen. And there's Matej Mikovic.
Close.
There he is. Yeah, there he is in the background. You can just see the blue Porsche. That is the Hungarian. He is nowhere near. We've just switched it to intervals, so that's our fault. Apologies for that.
Chris he's just like, I know what will get these guys.
Behind the scenes, he's shaking his head thinking, what am I doing here? Anyway, there they are. You can see big gaps, nothing to worry about. That's certainly not a big gap for 6th place. After working his way through Marvin Mackenberg, Mihai Neg is looking up the inside. Well, not looking up the inside yet, but he is looking for a way through on Sven Mackenberg. Just 2 laps left, but I think he's got time enough to do this.
What is this sandwich? What is it?
Mackenberg sandwich.
It's not. You're an idiot sandwich. It's a Mihai Neg sandwich with some lovely, delicious Mackenberg bread. It's not quite like sourdough, but it's almost up there. Here comes the move. They're coming in from the Porsche driver down towards T1.
And the outside. He will have the inside for 2 if he wants it, but I don't think he does necessarily this time. He'll go for the cutback. He does like this, and if he can get the run here, he'll have turn 4 to himself, but I don't think it was quite good enough. The big BMW was kind of in the way of him getting on the throttle when he really wanted to. It's not going to prevent Sven Mackenberg from going on the defensive, down the Retroposta and in towards the Interlagos for the penultimate time. Here goes Mihai Neg right round the outside. Oh, there's contact, and Sven Mackenberg spins right in front of his brother, who has to take avoiding action to the outside. Here comes Rokas to B as well. Tomac Conti is not quite close enough, I'm afraid, but Sven Mackenberg spins and he drops from 6th to 9th on the penultimate lap.
Yeah, huge drama there. There was definite contact on turn in. Rokas to be, whether it's because he turned in too early or what, I don't know. It's tough to tell from that angle. But there was definite contact between Rokas, between Mihai Neg and between Mackenberg. So there was definite contact, just a light bit, fair enough, but clearly enough to send him round.
One of those really difficult ones to call, I think, from first viewing. So you can rewind the YouTube tube if you want to have a look again. I'm going to afterwards because that's a difficult one to call. There goes Turkey Hakkinen through on one of the lapped BMWs. Like it's going to be another 3rd place for him today. In fact, 2 of the 3 on the podium are going to be the same. Ilya Drovosekov was runner-up to Philip Dreis 1 week ago, and Turkey Hakkinen followed them in 3rd. But Drovosekov is going to go one better this time round and take his 3rd RaceRoom Rank Championship win. By the looks of things, Christian Michel is going to infiltrate the podium and keep it NeedRacing.com exclusive. So we've got, I think, Sven Mackenberg off again here. And he's out the race by the looks of things. A real shame for Sven Mackenberg, who may indeed be out of the race. Only 14th 1 week ago at Daytona. He could be even in trouble in terms of making the global final. But out of the final corner, we've got the leaders making their way towards the line. Ilya Drovosekov has never won outside of the BMW M2 35i Cup competition that he very nearly won 2 years ago. But now he's a race winner again in 2024. Ilya Drovosekov wins round 2 of the GTE Masters here at Interlagos. In the end, a 3-second margin, but it was comfortable for the Swiss driver.
It was dominant for the Swiss driver. I mean, look, we know how good Drovosekov is. We've seen him time and time again over the last few years in RaceRoom activities, whether it is in the RaceRoom Rank Championship, whether it is obviously in various of the esports competitions. We know how good he is, how strong he is, and to see him put on such a performance like that, it's such an impressive drive. Over his teammates. Fair enough. I'm sure they might not have hounded him quite as strongly, but it is NeedRacing.com 1, 2, and 3 again. And let's be honest, it would have been a 1, 2, 3, 4 without the disconnection.
Probably. I think Matej Mikovic maybe had something to say during that race, but I don't know if it quite would have been enough. You'd see how big the gaps are, by the way. They're still completing the top 10. You've just seen the top 3 on your screen. It's all RaceRacing.com again. Matej Miskovic, as I say, 4th place. Lost those positions on the start, really gained them back. Colin Blankenberg finishes inside the top 5 for the 2nd week in a row. He should be 3rd in the driver's standings now, though we'll check afterwards. Mihai Neg finishes in 6th position, which is a decent return, actually, considering he was on what's widely considered to be the slower tyres throughout that race. Marvin Mackenberg was the only surviving part of the brothers who were running together for most of the race, and he was the best performing BMW throughout the day. Rokas de P did a lot of defending in the first half of the race and eventually got an 8th place return for it. Thomas Gontier recovered from a drive-through penalty, which I can't believe he served, and still got 9th, ahead of Petter Daniel, who also made good progress during that race. So that is your top 10, as I say, spread over nearly a minute. Luca D'Amico was just about a minute down ahead of Ville Crevi. Guillaume Vigneron finished in 30th, ahead of Gaspar Mitch, who fought his way past the likes of Rasto Obratel in 15th place, and Martin Prinder as well. We'll find out in a moment where Michał Dusek went, because he was running with those guys for a while. Manzini, Ramau, Evtushenko, Lukic round out the top 20. That pretty much rounds out those who finished on the lead lap as well. You would have seen on the run up towards the line a couple of drivers pulling out and making sure they got lapped. I think Michał Dufek might have been one of them. Jason Underwood as well finished in 22nd ahead of Taz Higgs, also a lap down. Zizka Eskivoski, Lisa, who also had a drive-through penalty by the way during that race. Guillaume Vigneron, who's here for a 2nd week in a row, but this time in the top split ahead of Gra, and then it was Jim Best a couple of laps down, then those who retired. Sven Mackenberg right at the very end, Tim Ross pretty much towards the end, Philip Drace disconnected, and Jaskov retired, I think, in the first half of that race. Great entry, by the way, 34 cars and drivers on the field here today for the top split, which is absolutely fantastic seeing. Great racing as well. I've got to say, after 1 week ago at Daytona, wasn't especially enthused by that in terms of what racing we were actually going to see here over the course of an hour, but it was absolutely breathless. There was something going on all of the race at 3.5 seconds for the lead. Maybe that's this one as a bit of a closer race on paper than it actually was for the win in the end, but the battles further down the field, in the midfield especially, were spectacular, and they were never ending.
Yeah, look, we had a lot of fun in that one for sure. I will say I think Marvin Mackenberg probably not going to be in the BMW next round after what he's just dropped in chat. As he said, that really was some GP2 engine. So I think he's struggling for the straight line speed of that BMW. Kind of what we were expecting that might have happened. Either way, the racing was excellent. It was a lot of fun. And I think as well to have that one to look and to think that a very well-deserved victor in Drovosekov, just absolutely dominant all the way through. Just fantastic.
By the way, I hope we will see Marvin Mackenberg, Sven Mackenberg doing it again, because
he said I'll take it again.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, I didn't see that. Oh, yeah, very nice. Sven Mackenberg saying it was his dumbest DNF ever. Marvin Mackenberg saying I'll do it again. It's good to see. I'm glad to have the BMW back, because he's actually had a better finish this week than he did last week in the Porsche, Marvin Mackenberg. So, and Sven would have as well without that final DNF on the very last lap of the race. Big well done, and a big thanks to Chris, who's been pushing the buttons for us this evening, by the way, and most of all doing the maths for us, because I couldn't quite do it on the top of my head while we were talking there. Ilya Drovoskov will be the championship leader and pretty much guarantees himself a place in the global final with 94 points. You'd think that'll be enough. Turk Ackerlin and Colin Blankenberg probably have enough too, but would probably like a few more points to get themselves there in a fortnight's time. Marvin Mackenberg moves up to a tied 4th place with Luca D'Amico, but there's a noticeable gap there. Work to do, though. 2 notable names missing from that top 5 list are Christian Mikel and Philip Drace, both with a 0 score so far. Pressure will be on them at Imola to perform well and to get into the global final, which is where, as we reiterate, the prizes are won this year.
Yeah, which is, like I say, it's interesting that they're not in that top grouping. It just, again, at this point, you need to have 2 good rounds to be in the top 5. One's just not good enough, as has been said with Philip Drace, who won. And then, obviously, he had the retirement there and is not in the list. I'd have to say, when it comes to that round at Imola, it does feel like it's the kind of circuit which it's very much in your own control. The most important bit, though, at Imola in a week's time will be qualifying, making sure that you nail that qualifying session, you get yourself a good grid position, because overtaking there will be tough. And that'll be for the short kings to deal with.
Yeah, Zach and Darrell will be with you for that. I'd say it's my last round of the championship this season. Just 2 more to go for season 1 of 2024. In case you're wondering why it just says final and not the circuit like it does for most of the other rounds, that's because you get to vote on it as the community. So look out for that. I believe it opens after the Imola event or just before it or around the Imola event. So not yet. You can't quite vote just yet, but it will be open pretty shortly in the next week or so. And then we will be able to tell Zach and Dara who to influence the votes for, and we can hopefully get the circuit we want for the finale as we did for the M4 GT4 trophy. But I joke slightly. So look out for that when we get to the Imola round in just a week's time. Final thoughts from you then, Lewis, as we both have 1 week off before you come back for the finale. We've got some big names in this series once again, as we always seem to in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. We saw some of them here today. Hopefully they all make it forward to the final. And at the moment, we're not, unlike maybe the other 2 championships, we're not really seeing a favourite, in my opinion, emerge as to who's going to win.
No, not a direct favourite at all. It is seeming like it's going to be one of the needracing.com drivers, but which one it is, unlike what we've had in the previous bits where it's kind of been a little bit more clear, this is not the case. And just because it is clear doesn't mean that's how the season finale is going to go, because it comes down to how things work in the finale. We'll talk about that, of course, in a couple of weeks' time, and I'm sure both Darren and Zach will talk about it a little bit next week. I think we're building up to quite an interesting finale. I'm very curious to what the 3 circuits will be, and again, that vote will happen on the RaceRoom Discord server. So if you're not on it, come along and join.
I left out the most important information, didn't I? You're right. It's on the RaceRoom Discord, so make sure you join and vote. That's just about it for us tonight. As I say, my last round of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship this season, so thanks very much for having me again. I hope you've been able to put up with me for 7 rounds so far. Lewis will be back for the global final. Zach and Dara up next week for Imola. Really important race for those who are gunning for a global final and, of course, a victory as we end the 3rd championship in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship for season 1 of 2024. I've been Neil O'Leary alongside Lewis McGlade, and Chris has been behind the cameras. As always, we'll see you in a week's time in Imola. It's goodbye for now.